So the president's been very clear what his goal is, hasn't he? He's told us he's going after murderers, rapists, terrorists, criminally insane, childhood predators, the worst of the worst, he says. How are they doing on that score?
If you look at all the people that they booked into these facilities, just 5% in the most recent available data had violent criminal convictions of any kind.
1 out of 20.
1 out of 20
fits that category. So you got 19 people that are not culpable, not liable, not criminally responsible in any way, and they are the ones who are being swept up into this detention.
Even more tellingly, the administration itself assigns a threat level to each detainee. And we can look at, within the data, how they categorize these people. Just 8% are categorized at the highest threat level, and 73% are not given a threat level at all, deemed not a threat. And so you look at what they're actually saying in their own administrative records. They don't believe these people are threats either. And they don't care, because it's not about public safety.
This may look like another heated immigration exchange, but it's actually a test of whether government policy aligns with government data. What's really being tested here is the credibility of enforcement claims versus the documented numbers inside federal records. When public messaging emphasizes extreme threats, yet internal classifications tell a more complicated story, it raises broader questions about transparency, proportionality, and oversight. This isn't just about immigration strategy. It's about whether institutional power expands faster than accountability safeguards. In this video, we'll break down what the data actually shows, why the numbers matter, and what this confrontation reveals about the balance between public safety and constitutional responsibility.
Senator Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Beer, I'm impressed by your analysis and your presentation, and I thank all the members of the panel for their presentation. But I'd like to follow up with a question or two. The big, bold, beautiful bill, President's budget, approved 18,500 new agents, ICE agents 10,000, 8,500 CPB agents. I believe that Secretary Noem has identified their training period to be 47 days as a tribute to the President, the 47th President of the United States. When I talk to police chiefs and mayors back home, they say you can't prepare an officer for contact with the public in that short a period of time. Do you have any thoughts on the subject?
Oh, absolutely. It is reprehensible that they're cutting back on training at a time when they're asking officers to do things that even long experienced officers have not had to do: conduct random traffic stops, do crowd control, all of these things, profiling people in the street, all of these things that were never done by Immigration and Customs Enforcement before is now being done as a mandatory policy. So there should be more training rather than less when you're asking more from your officers.
And so the question in my mind is, what are they going to do with all of these people as they're learning on the job with weapons in their hands, wearing masks so they can't be identified? It's speculation in Washington about detention facilities. How many there will be? 8, 9, I've heard 15 detention facilities. Our present Bureau of Prisons population is around 160,000. We have more people in jail than any country on earth. More people in jail than any country on earth. And now we're going to build detention facilities that house another 150,000. Visualize, if you will, the America that they're designing for us in the future with those parameters.
Look, they're clearly not concerned about the welfare of the people that they're arresting. I mean, they are detaining American citizens even and putting them in these facilities and not giving them access to attorneys. They're not letting them make phone calls. And then they're often released without charges, but that doesn't make the wrong correct. And so now when you're going to have this huge bureaucracy of people pulling people off the street and shoveling them into warehouses where they're essentially black boxes. Lawyers can't get in, there's no oversight, there's very little due process, and the due process that there is, they're constantly attacking and trying to remove it. So you need greater oversight, you need greater protection, but they're not putting any of the money into oversight and accountability for these facilities.
So the President's been very clear what his goal is, hasn't he? He's told us he's going after murderers, rapists, terrorists, criminally insane, childhood predators, the worst of the worst, he says. How are they doing on that score?
If you look at all the people that they booked into these facilities, just 5% in the most recent available data had violent criminal convictions of any kind.
1 out of 20.
1 out of 20
fits that category. So you got 19 people that are not culpable, not liable, not criminally responsible in any way, And they are the ones who are being swept up into this detention.
Even more tellingly, the administration itself assigns a threat level to each detainee. And we can look at, in the data, how they categorize these people. Just 8% are categorized at the highest threat level, and 73% are not given a threat level at all, deemed not a threat. And so you look at what they're actually saying in their own administrative records. They don't believe these people are threats either. And they don't care, because it's not about public safety. It's about the population purge. And it by all means necessary. It doesn't matter if it makes us poor. It doesn't matter if it takes away our rights. It doesn't matter if it harms you, takes your wife, and sends her to some foreign country.
I just have a few seconds left. I commend to you the case of Miramar Martinez in October, who was shot on the streets of Chicago. A teacher in a Montessori school. She was shot in her car 5 times and survived. God knows how. She survived. And what happened to the charges against her? 8 weeks later, dropped. All charges. Could be because the vehicle she supposedly rammed had been moved from Chicago to Maine to be repainted. So it wasn't any evidence in her trial. To think of what has happened to this 30-year-old woman's life, born and raised in Chicago, an American citizen, shot by these ICE agents on the streets of Chicago.
And they bragged about it.
They brag about it. He was one of the shooters said, "I got 5 bullets and 7 holes." It was quite a shot. He's very proud of himself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cruz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I think it is amazing that...
In the final moments of this hearing, Senator Dick Durbin leaned forward and asked a question that cut through the rhetoric like a blade. If the administration claims it is targeting the worst of the worst, then why do the numbers tell a different story? 1 out of 20. Just 5% of detainees booked into ICE facilities, according to the most recent available data, had violent criminal convictions of any kind. 1 out of 20. The rest, 19 out of 20, did not fit the image repeatedly invoked from podiums and campaign stages. That was the moment. Not a shouting match, not a dramatic interruption, but a quiet dismantling of a narrative. Durbin pressed the expert witness with calm precision. The president's budget proposes 18,500 new agents, 10,000 for ICE and 8,500 for Customs and Border Protection. With a training period reportedly reduced to just 47 days. Police chiefs back home, Durbin said, question whether that is enough time to prepare officers for complex public interactions. The witness did not hesitate. Cutting back training while expanding authority, he argued, is not just misguided. It is dangerous, especially when those officers are now tasked with random traffic stops, crowd control, and street-level enforcement tactics that were never standard practice for immigration and customs enforcement, and then came the numbers. 5%, 8% categorized at the highest threat level. 73% not assigned a threat level at all. The administration's own internal records, according to the testimony, do not support the sweeping language used to justify this vast expansion of enforcement. If public safety were the sole focus, the data would reflect that urgency. Instead, the figures suggest something broader, something more systemic. A mass detention apparatus growing faster than the oversight designed to contain it. Durbin painted a stark picture, a federal prison population already at approximately 160,000. The United States already holding more people in custody than any other nation. And now, proposals to build detention facilities capable of housing another 150,000 individuals. Facilities described in testimony as black boxes where access to counsel is limited, oversight is scarce, and due process is strained. This is not merely a policy debate about immigration enforcement. It is a debate about the architecture of power. When a government expands its enforcement capacity at scale, faster training, more agents, larger detention centers, the question is not only who is being targeted. The question is what kind of country is being constructed in the process. Durbin's remarks referenced a case in Chicago. An American citizen, a teacher, shot multiple times during an ICE operation. Charges later dropped. Evidence moved out of state. A life forever altered. He described officers publicly boasting about their actions. The details were jarring, not because they were sensational, but because they were human. Behind every statistic is a person. Behind every facility is a family waiting for answers. Behind every budget line item is a moral choice. Supporters of the current enforcement strategy argue that strength and deterrence are necessary to maintain order. Critics warn that speed and scale are replacing precision and restraint. In the hearing room, those two visions collided, not through shouting, but through numbers, through lived experience, through a single question repeated for emphasis, 1 out of 20. What does that reveal? It reveals the gap between political messaging and administrative reality. It reveals how language can frame a narrative that data struggles to uphold. And it reveals the tension at the heart of democratic governance, the balance between security and liberty. Durbin's critique was not simply about ICE, it was about accountability, about whether expanded authority comes with expanded oversight, about whether officers trained in under 2 months can be expected to navigate the most sensitive interactions in American communities, about whether detention without clear threat designation aligns with the values enshrined in the Constitution. In a democracy, power must be scrutinized precisely when it grows. This hearing did not resolve the debate. It did not pass a bill or dismantle an agency. But it illuminated something deeper, the moral crossroads facing the country. Are enforcement agencies instruments of narrowly defined public safety objectives? Or are they becoming symbols of a broader political project, one measured not by individualized risk, but by volume? Durbin's closing words carried a weight beyond Illinois. It's terrible, it's indefensible, it's embarrassing. Strong language from a senior senator. But in that chamber, it was less about outrage and more about warning. A warning that when systems expand without transparency, when detention outpaces oversight, when narratives outpace facts, the consequences ripple far beyond one policy arena. This is how institutions are tested. Not in moments of calm consensus, but in moments of tension. When data challenges rhetoric, when citizens demand answers, when elected officials are forced to confront the human cost of abstract strategies. The American system is built on checks and balances, on hearings like this, on uncomfortable questions asked in public view. Whether one agrees with Durbin or not, the significance of the exchange lies in the act itself, accountability performed in the open. And that is why it matters, because democracy is not self-sustaining. It requires vigilance. It requires citizens willing to look beyond headlines and into the substance of testimony. It requires leaders willing to question not only their opponents, but the machinery of government itself. Tonight, one senator held up a statistic and asked the nation to look at it closely, 1 out of 20. In that fraction lies a broader conversation about justice, proportionality, and the character of American governance in the years ahead. Stay informed. Stay engaged. And if you believe in transparency and accountability in public life, subscribe to Liberty Report USA and support our work to expose the truth.